Welcome to Planned Pooling with Mary Maxim Starlette Pooling Yarn. Mary Maxim Starlette Pooling Yarn is a simple variegated yarn that pools. So if you look at the swatch here, there's an area where we pooled and there's an area where we just let the variegation in the yarn work on its own. This area here, we just let the yarn work. We started from here, this is our tail. We chained across 29, chained up 1, and then just used the moss stitch to let the color work. And as you can see, it's beautiful, it's absolutely gorgeous. So letting the natural color variations just show themselves is actually very beautiful. We really like this yarn. As we flip over, we're going to show you the area of the same yarn where we actually worked the planned pooling technique. So as we started to pool and started to put certain requirements on our stitches, you can see how the yarn worked together to create this beautiful argyle pattern. We begin, like always, with a slip stitch, except for this time we want the color after gray to be the only one on our first loop. So we're going to work this back and forth. Work the knot, but you may have to try a few times, but we're going to work this loop back and forth so that there's only white on the loop. The reason for this is you want your argyle pattern or your pooling pattern to be centered in your garment or whatever piece of work you're working with. Right now we're making a scarf. You can get this pattern at marymaxim.com and check the description down below. We'll leave a link. So now we have just white on our loop. It's exactly where we want it to be. We're using a I9 5.5 millimeter hook, and we're going to chain 30. We're chaining 30 for this planned pooling repeat. It's a repeat of 29 plus 1 for your chain up. So now you're going to single crochet into the second chain from the hook. Remember, this is the moss stitch pattern. Chain 1, skip 1 chain, and single crochet into the next chain. Chain 1, skip the next chain, and single crochet into the next chain. Repeat this all the way across. Okay, so we finished row 1 in the moss stitch pattern. Something to note is there's about 4 stitches of each color. So there's 1 pink under my thumb, 4 gray, there's 4 white, there's 4 gray, and then there's 3 pink. But we have the 1 pink on this side here. You're going to turn, chain 1, and then single crochet into the same stitch from the previous row, or the same single crochet. We're going to be working into the chain spaces. So we're doing a chain here, and we'll talk about that later, but in the pattern it says to single crochet into the next chain space. Here you're going to chain 1 and then single crochet again into the next chain space. Chain 1, single crochet into the next chain space. You may have asked why we did an additional chain 1 at the beginning. The reason is we needed to eat up some yarn so that our colors are placed in the right spots. So it's kind of a game. The pattern is really more of a guideline. We didn't want our rose color to go, or our pink or our rose color to move over too much. We needed to eat up some yarn at the beginning of that row. So we don't have enough gray. We're a little short on a gray yarn, so we're going to size down to a smaller hook size and play with our tension a little bit to make sure that we have those 4 stitches in our gray. That's the fun part about pooling, is you're actually really modifying your stitches in order to get the colors to be in the right spots. So you see we have 3.5. Now you can choose to have the 3.5, or you can choose to go back and make sure that it's a 4. But 3.5 works, as long as you remember that it's a half space and what color group it actually belongs to. We're going to continue with our moss stitch. We're going to chain 1 and single crochet into the next chain space, making sure that we have 4 single crochets in the white. So this is 3 and we need 1 more. So now we're going to loosen up on our tension a little bit to make sure that we have gray at the end. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we need 4 in our gray. 1, 2, 3. Oh, so see how we're kind of working into the pink? If we continue with this tension and with this hook, we're only going to have 3 gray instead of our 4. So we're going to back out again. And again, we're going to start by going a little bit tighter on our tension. And if we need to, we can always go down a hook size. The rule to remember on this is if you need more yarn to complete your color, you go down a hook size. If you need to eat up some yarn, you go up a hook size. And the other thing you can do if you need to eat up some yarn is you can place extra chain somewhere, like we did at the beginning of this row. We needed to eat up some pink yarn. And so now we have our 4 single crochets in the gray, just by changing our tension a little bit. We're going to continue in the moss stitch by doing a chain 1 and single crochet into the next chain space. Chain 1, single crochet into the next chain space, and continue to the end, making sure that we do a single crochet into the very last single crochet in the row. So we finished the chain space, now we have to do another single crochet. Notice that there's no chain in between the chain space and the single crochet. But again, if you need to eat up yarn, that's a place you could put it. Okay, so we've worked 5 rows, and for this project, we're going to assume that the right side is where our tail is on the left-hand corner. So just to recap, we've done 4 single crochets in each color progression as we've gone along. So now I want to show you how these stitches are creating movement. Your even rows are moving to the right, and your odd rows are actually moving to the left. They're doing this by having an offset stitch. So if you look at the way that the stitches are placed, they're placed in the next even or odd row, but 1 stitch over. So the white, you're going to go up and over 1. And then again, it's up and over 1. Same thing on the even rows. So now that we've taken a closer look at the stitches, let's deconstruct our original project. Here, where we haven't worked the pooling method, you see how we have all these straight lines. We've let the yarn move naturally, and it's not necessarily consistent back and forth. When we flip to where we do our pooling, you see where these offset stitches really do the work. In order to create this even offset, they should be moving, but they should be moving at a consistent rate. So that's why we suggest having it move 1 over every other row. Keeping in mind that the odd rows coordinate with odd rows and even rows coordinate with even rows. We hope you've enjoyed this guideline to plan pooling with Mary Maxim Starlette. Make sure to click the link in the description of this video to download the pattern and links to where you can purchase Mary Maxim Starlette Pooling Yarn. If you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and make sure to follow us along on our other social media profiles. Happy crafting!